Hello everyone. Today we are going to see about introduction to C programming language. So before going to actual C concepts, first let us see what is the history of C programming language. That is when this has been started, especially programming languages. What is the first language? How does this C programming has entered into, and where do we use these C programs basically in the beginning? So all that we'll see, and the basic what is a variable uh, of the C program. That is how you are going to declare the variables and assign variables or initialize variables and the rules of variables. We will see those things in today's um, lecture. Okay. So first, let us see what is the history of C program. Yes. So see here, the programming language term has started in the year 1950 with the language called Fortran, right? Or Fortran. So this was the first programming language which was introduced in the year 1950. From the Fortran language, another programming language was developed called Algol. So Algol is nothing but your algorithmic logic, language. Okay. And in the year 1968, the language called BCPL, Basic Combined Programming Language, was being started. And in the year 1970, BCPL, another programming language, is developed by Ren Townsend. It is called as B language. And then later, in the year 1972, Dennis Ritchie has developed C programming language at AT and T Bell Labs laboratory, right? For developing the system software. And then in the later years, in the 1978, Ritchie and Kernighan released the new or the next version of the C language, that is K or RC. But in the year 1980, American National Standards Institute released the next version of C language called ANSI C. And in the year 2000, ISO standard C is released and it is called as C99, right? And on the 8th of December 2011, the latest version of C is released with the name called C11. And you may get doubt why does they had named it as C language only. So it was just an alphabetical order. If you'll just closely observe in this previous part, first we had moved with your Fortran, right? Which is the basic one. So from this, we had moved to developing algorithm. So A is your first letter, right? They didn't consider uh, Fortran as an alphabetical order, but they had started from your algorithm, right? From algorithm, they did some modifications and they started with the new programming language, that is basic combined programming language. From that BCPL, they had extinguished, sorry, they had extended to B language, right? So from that, this Dennis Ritchie had extended that to C programming language, this at AT and T Bell Labs, right? So which is available in your US, right? So then afterwards, some standards and American, that's what, ANSI. So those all had given standards for the C language, and at the on 8th of the December 2011, the final C11 has been came into existence, right? So actually, what is the need of developing these programming languages? So in the initially, when they were trying to develop your motherboards and all, and also your remotes and all, they had required some programming language. That is, when you're pressing some button, how does the system is working, right? So when you're doing some works in a smart way, how does those are working? So in order to get that, they had started this programming language. So RC is going to act as a basic programming language for all the or the higher or other object-oriented programming languages, right? So whatever the programming you are learning, but the basic is C language. And the same thing I had also represented it in the form of a flow diagram. See, Fortran is started in year 1950 And then from Fortran, they had moved to Algol, and from Algol to BCPL, from BCPL to B, from B to C. And in this C only, they had added these standards, ISO standards, and finally we had moved with your C11 in 2011. Here, so this was the basic history of your C program. Generally, this is not actually part of your academics, but you need to know from where does this C program has come. What are the parent languages of the C, right? So for that reason, I wanted to share the basic history of your C language. And you should also remember that the father of C programming or the C languages, Dennis Ritchie, right? And he had developed this C language at AT&T Bell Labs. Okay, right. So this was the history of your C programming. So next comes, what are these variables? So I think I had shown you few of the examples where I had in most of the lectures, I had said that addition of two numbers, subtraction, like that, right? So how we are going to store those values I said, if you wanted to do addition, A plus B. So for A, I had given 3, and for B, I had given 4. So I should get that value in some other variable C, right? So all those things I had said, but I didn't said what a variable actually it is, right? Till that previous lectures. So today we'll see what is a variable, and how you are going to declare the variables, and how those variables are being used in our programming language, right? So if check the first point, variables are containers for storing data values like numbers and characters, or the variable is used to store the value. You can also give another definition like uh, variable is a name which is given for a memory location. So when you are trying to declare a variable, some particular memory will be allocated in your memory location, right? So this thing will happen when you declare the variables. And why we are telling it as a variable? Because as and when you will try to execute the program, you will try to change the values for that particular variable, right? So same, if I do addition, I may give 3 plus 4, you may give 4 plus 3, some other person may give 5 plus 10, right? So what is happening if I give the same program for me, for you, for the other person, he may give some different input, you will give some different input, I will give some different input. But in my program, I had declared only 2 variables. So what is happening when I'll execute, my values will be entered into that particular memory block. When you will execute, your values will be entering into that particular memory block, and when the other one, his values will be entered into that particular memory block. So what is happening, as and when you are trying to execute and you are giving different inputs, those values will be varied, that is, it will be changed continuously until and unless you quit from that particular program. That is the reason they had given it as the name variable. See here, I had in the second point, I had also mentioned, as the name indicates, its value can be changed, or also it can be reused, right? So this is what the variable. As I said, you can note the another definition also for variables. Variable is a name for a memory location. Why I was telling that name of a memory location is when you are giving or when you are declaring integer A, right? So generally integers value is 2 bytes, right? So in the memory, 2 bytes of memory will be allocated for that variable A, right? So now here A is name of that particular memory block, right? So that was a variable. And next, coming to declaration or creating variable, how we are going to declare a variable. The variable declaration indicates that the operating system is going to reserve a piece of memory with that particular variable. So until and unless I'll declare a variable, no memory will be allocated for that particular value, for that particular variable. Okay, so the syntax for that is data type and variable name, and you can give a semicolon. So if you see this first point, a data type and variable name, this is for single variable. If I wanted to declare same 2 or 3 or a number of values with same data type, then I can go with data type variable name 1, comma variable name 2, comma variable name 3, and then finally I had given semicolon. So this is single variable declaration. This is multiple variable declaration. So when you declare, what will happen? It is going to allocate memory in the in memory block in your memory, right? So as I said, there are different types of data types, right? So generally we'll be using int, float, char. So integer, it will store the integer values, that is your whole numbers without decimals, such as 123 or minus 123 also you can give. Floating point stores the floating point numbers with the decimals, such as if I wanted to store 19.99 or minus 19.99, I'll go for the data type float. And char stores a single character such as A, small, it may be small a or capital B, it may be capital A or small b, whatever it may be, but only single character. Char values are always surrounded by the single quotes, right? So these are the major data types. We'll see in later videos regarding the data types in detail. Okay, for time being, you just remember what is int, what is float, what is a char, and which type of data values will be stored into the int, float, and char. Okay, so you just see the example here. I had declared one variable A for the value integer and one variable B for the value 10.21. So this is of type float, and see the character, it has to be quoted in a single quote. So this is the way to declare a variables, right? For integer, int keyword you will use, for character char you will use, and for float you will use, for floating point numbers you will use the float as a keyword, right? Here, what is a keyword? Again, you may get doubt. Keywords are nothing but your reserved words, right? In when the C developers has developed this language, they had considered few words. Those are already reserved in the programming language. Those values or those names, those keywords, you cannot keep them as your program name or some function names. You can't create your own names by using those particular words, right? So always remember that keywords are nothing but your reserved words. Okay. So yes, these are your data types. And next, so we had seen the declaration of a variable. Now we'll see the variable initialization. So the syntax for variable initialization is as follows: data type, variable name is equals to value. So you just see closely in this example, I had declared int width height is equals to 20. So int width is declaration, int height is equals to 20 is initialization. And the second also, char letter is equals to r. So this is my initialization, right? And just simply I took float and float base and area as a floating point numbers, right? So this is what the variable initialization and the example, right? So do a concentration on what is declaration and what is initialization. In declaration, you will just give data type, variable name. In the initialization, you will give the data type, variable name, and also its value, right? So what the difference between variable declaration and variable initialization? Okay. And then next comes variable assignment, right? Variable assignment, right? So variable assignment is a process of assigning a value to the variable. So here what we will do is actually now this I have to change. For example, int height, right? Int height is equals to 40 I had given, right? So it is not actually that one. I can take int height semicolon, right? And in the next line, I will give height is equals to 40. So this is nothing but first you will declare a variable and then you will assign some value. Okay. So this is your variable assignment. First declaration, and then if you'll give some value, then that is assignment. If you'll directly give the variable data type, variable name and value, then that is nothing but your initialization. Okay. Yeah. And finally, we comes across the rules for defining variables. A variable may be alphabets, digits, or underscore, right? You can use alphabets, digits, even underscore. And a variable name can start with an alphabet and an underscore, but cannot start with digit. Okay. And white spaces are also not allowed in the variable name. And a variable is not a reserved word or keyword. For example, int, go to, etc. That's what just now I said. Keywords are already reserved words. Okay. So this is what regarding the history and basic variables of the C program. So what all we had covered? We had covered the history. So history is from Fortran, we came to alcohol. From alcohol, we came to BCPL. From there, we had came to B. And from B, we had came to C. So further of your C languages, Dennis Ritchie, right? It was developed at A&T at Bell Labs. Okay. And then next we had came across a variable. So what is a variable? Variable is nothing but a name given for memory location, right? How we are going to declare a variable? Data type, variable name, semicolon. How we are going to initialize the variables? Data type, and then your value, that is variable name, and then you are going to give some value. How we are going to assign the value? Data type and the variable name, semicolon. Somewhere you will be assigning the value for that. Okay. So this is what regarding variables. And then we had also seen that the rules for defining variables, that it can have underscore, but not, it should not have any digits in the beginning. It should not have any white spaces, and keywords are not going to be used in any of the variables. Okay. So that's all for today's video. Okay. Today's lecture. Thank you, everyone.